Get ready for Season 3 of the Tron Grand Hackathon 2022 with a total of $1.2 million in prizes across Web3, DeFi, GameFi, NFTs, and the newly added Academy and Ecosystem tracks. The wait is over. Tron Grand Hackathon presented by TronDAO. To learn more, visit trondao.org. Eager to make more informed decisions around crypto using data you can trust? Chainalysis demystifies cryptocurrency by providing industry-leading compliance, market intelligence, and investigation support for all crypto assets for organizations like Gemini, Crypto.com, and BlockFi. Maximize your potential with the leading blockchain data platform by visiting chainalysis.com/thescoop now. This episode is brought to you by IWC. IWC Schaffhausen is a Swiss luxury watch manufacturer based in Schaffhausen, Switzerland. Known for its unique engineering approach to watchmaking, IWC combines the best of human craftsmanship and creativity with cutting-edge technology and processes. Discover the full collection at IWC.com or download the IWC app to experience a virtual try-on now. All opinions expressed by hosts and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and not necessarily those of the blocks. Podcast guests may have taken positions in the assets or other matters discussed in this podcast. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. For full terms, visit theblockcrypto.com/terms-service. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Scoop. I'm your host, Frank Chaparro, editor-at-large at The Block, and we have a very exciting episode for you today. On the other side of the mic is our friend, Jeff Zirlin, founder and growth lead at Sky Mavis Games. For those of you who are not familiar with Sky Mavis or didn't listen to our previous episode with Jeff, they are the creators of Axie Infinity. For a period of time in 2021, Axie Infinity was sort of the zeitgeist of the game, blockchain-based gaming phenomenon that swept the market. And at one point, as many of you know, it was sort of especially popular in the Philippines and Southeast Asia. We've seen a bit of slowing growth, obviously in line with a broader slowdown in the overall crypto market. We'll get into that and much more. Jeff, thanks for joining The Scoop.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Excited to be back.
Yeah, you're known as Papa Jiho in the Axie community. Are people still calling you that? Are they less sort of familiar?
They have a bunch of nicknames for me. I find it endearing.
So how do you, obviously activity has slowed, but how do you continue to build a strong relationship with those who refer to you as Papa?
Well, we've been at this since 2018, right? So we've seen all sorts of market conditions. We actually prefer these types of slower bear market conditions, right? It gives you time to build, to improve product. Thankfully, we're in a position where, we have a really strong balance sheet. So yeah, I think we're just focused on iterating, improving our products across the board from the game origins. We have a land game under production, improve the infrastructure on the Ronin side of things. So, I think this is just a time to, not slow down, not really speed up, just to continue to compound and push forward.
So how are you working to improve the infrastructure of Ronin?
Well, yeah, one thing that just happened is we announced Google Cloud as our latest validator. So, right, like one of the things that we're doing is, working to expand the validator set on the Ronin side of things. So, having Google Cloud as a partner, definitely is a huge step for the community. People are super excited about that. Also, of course, like onboarding game developers that are interested in having access to either our IP on the Axie side of things or our community if they want to deploy some other type of IP. So.
Mm-hmm. Last time we spoke, you announced for the first time that you guys were developing an in-game DEX. What's that been like?
Yeah, it's worked really smoothly. It's been nice to have our own exchange, on Ronin, where community members can pretty smoothly claim the tokens that they earn from playing the game, and then they can swap without having to, transfer back to mainnet or go somewhere else. So,
I was at Sol, and it was interesting. A lot of the venture capitalists and investors I talked to have kind of moved away from being super keen to invest or back blockchain based games.
mm,
The word I kept hearing time and time again was infrastructure.
mm,
So the cooling has kind of spilled into venture land. And I guess the logic there is you have a SaaS based business with an infrastructure provider that can kind of yield a future juicy return, versus many of these games, they're much more, or at least have appeared to be much more cyclical. What do you think of that?
well, our belief is that, if you want to build a platform, the way to build defensibility around that platform is to have content, right? It's to have these engaging experiences that consumers love. Otherwise, right, infrastructure, especially in Web3, where most things are open source, quickly gets commoditized. So we do not really believe in that. We actually believe that, right, like community is the moat. And despite everything that's happened, right, there's still 2.2 million Axie holders, 750,000 monthly active addresses on the Ronin chain, 4 million Ronin wallet downloads. So we believe that we're in a strong position to continue to push forward the adoption of the infrastructure that we're building specifically for Web3 gaming.
Sure, but if you look at, the gaming NFT trade volume in Axie, it's down from, hundreds of millions to, I guess more recently, if we're looking at it, hundreds of thousands. So what does that illustrate?
Well, of course, like things get quite crazy during bull markets, right? We even saw this with the ICO era. But I think, even with ICOs, that was really important for the adoption of wallets and attracting builders to the Ethereum community. And I think the similar thing happened with Web3 gaming, where right people got a little bit ahead of themselves. People poured into Axie because it was the main thing that was working and the best product on the market. And now we're seeing a return to reality, but we're still at a much higher zone of adoption than we were prior to all the madness.
Mm, yeah. How do you maybe prepare for the next wave, if there is one?
I think it's to continue to follow the playbook that we've forged over the last almost 5 years now, right? Which is to make iterative product developments. Right now, with Axie Infinity Origin, which is our latest iteration of the card battler, right? Like we've introduced free starter Axies. We have runes and charms, which are ERC 1155 tokens that you can basically attach to your Axies. So this allows for progression. That's also caused the economy to actually become quite balanced. So in August, we were running season 0 and we saw 155 million SLP actually spent or burned on crafting, whereas only 43 million SLP was actually earned through the game. So we're actually seeing real consumer behavior where people are demonstrating that they're interested in spending within these digital economies, within the Axie economy, for motivations other than just purely earning, right? One of the things that I've been saying is that, we need to have emotional spending within these digital economies. People need to be spending for, maybe emotions that can kind of be linked to the 7 sins, right? Like wrath, envy, greed, sloth. These are the things that will actually help build sustainable in-game economies. It can't, right? It can't be everyone just coming in and expecting to earn a
Yeah.
free lunch.
So it can't just be speculators looking to play to earn. You need to balance that out with maybe folks who are willing to spend on digital goods digital services within the game to create a more robust, quote unquote, economy. It's almost similar to trading where you need the institutional flow, and to balance it out, you need the retail flow. Without one or the other, you kind of don't have necessarily a robust market.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you need to have actual consumer demand behind these products. I mean, that's the thing that I think, is needed in crypto in general, right? Like there have to be people that are using these products for the utility. We think that being able to actually own your game asset creates a different relationship between the player and the in-game asset that it has a lot of value regardless of the earning aspect as well.
So, what we're kind of talking about here is implementing, or the game plan to implement, a sort of desire to exist in the game to ensure long term sustainability and to sustain the in game economy by speaking to our human desire to want things. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, right, is that our digital lives are becoming increasingly important relative to our physical lives. People are interested in expressing themselves, forming their identities within these online communities, and their assets and the items, right, within these games are becoming important ways of self-expression, right? So with people see their Axies as their pets, they see them as their avatars within the virtual world. And so one of the things that we're working on is upgraded parts, right? Where you can actually change the appearance of your Axie over time by spending resources, accessories, right? Like tattoos and things that you can attach to your Axie. But we know that digital fashion is a huge trend right now. People are spending billions of dollars each year on digital fashion, right? Clothes, outfits, and things like Fortnite on digital fashion that they don't even own, right? So the thesis is that if you can actually own these things, the desire to spend will be much higher, but the base desire still comes from that pursuit of self-expression.
So there's sort of a shift here, right? From maybe being over indexed on the play to earn element to now being over indexed on getting people to view their Axie as an extension of themselves, as a way to express themselves in their digital life. So, one aspect you mentioned here is the ability to upgrade their Axie to give them fun, cool accessories. What other ways can you kind of get them to want to spend in this world?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one of the things that's been really successful for games like Supercell, right, is that you'll have a leaderboard, you'll have PvP matches, and people will be able to spend to increase the power of their character, right? And we have that with runes
Mm-hmm.
and charms, where there are people who are crafting and selling the runes and charms, but on the other side, there are people like me who, I don't have too much time to play Axie, but I still want to be competitive. I want to be on the leaderboard. So I'll go and buy these runes and charms, attach them to my Axies, and then, right, I'm able to have a lot more fun as I climb. Some people, have, you can also make the argument that, oh, like this is creating pay to win, right? uh,
Mm.
which is, something that gamers sometimes complain about. But I think it's interesting because this is actually helping the in-game economy, right? It's not only going to the game developer, it's going to the entire community. And we just had our esports, finals in Barcelona at AxieCon, and for that we unlocked everything right on the esports server. All the contestants had access to all the runes and charms, so that everyone had a fair chance, right? So I think that's like the delineation that we're seeing is yes, you can have this, pay to advance or pay to save yourself time on in certain aspects of the game, like the leaderboard. But then when it comes time to determine who's the best in the world, everybody has access to the same runes and charms, which kind of levels the playing field.
Do you think that maybe you should have been a bit earlier to implementing these pay to win, pay to advance features to balance or counterbalance the play to earn element?
Yeah, that's a question that we get asked a lot, and is a question that we sometimes think about a lot. Because body part upgrades, has always been a part of the plan, right? Like burning axes, burning resources to be able to advance. It's hard. You always, as a startup, you're always like strapped for resources. The game that got us to 2.8 million users was built by 8 people, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Origins, what we just rolled out, that was built by a team of closer to 40 or 50. So it's always a question of resource prioritization. I think we're blessed to be in a position where now everyone is, the eyes of the world are upon us, right? They're wondering how is Axie going to, push forward and set the tone for the entire space around economic sustainability. So I think we're on the path to, really, really creating the formula once again for how to get to that next level of traction. And economies do develop in stages, right? This is what we saw with, the tigers in 1990s, right? Taiwan, South Korea, the Philippines, right? They had these kind of unsustainable booms that were subsidized by foreign direct investment and a lot of foreign capital coming in, and they had these kind of sudden stop crises. But those were also important for, right, like setting them up for their current success. So it's something that, right, like if you look at Axie as an economy, as even a digital nation, it's actually going through some of the booms and busts that emerging market countries often see, right? Where you have to have this shift from foreign direct investment and a reliance on exports to actually having a consumer-based economy, right? Like that was the theme of one of the classes that I took in university.
I know. I feel like I'm back in my international finance course at Fordham. Talked a lot about FDI and the impact it can have on an economy. In this case, the foreign investor were venture capitalists.
Yeah, speculators, right? People who
and
are
speculators. Sure.
in crypto, and everyone's always looking for something that's new and shiny and is working, right? And has a narrative, right? And sometimes as a project, you lean into that and it's great and it gets you a lot of brand recognition. But, there's always a hangover, right? So I think it's like just understanding what is the medicine for that hangover and making sure that you just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we talked about it last time you were on the show, how to create for a robust game economy, a robust metaverse economy. And I guess these are some of the functions. Do you think that like maybe it could act against your interests where some of the game players might be miffed that now they have to pay to unlock some of these aspects of the game?
Yeah, I think there are going to be different people who have different responses to our transition, right? So it's kind of like a transition away from play to earn to something that's more play and own. And there's some players that aren't going to appreciate it, but so far the response from the community has been really positive because they're seeing that, right, the game is becoming more fun. First and foremost, the community is still really strong, and most importantly, right, it's balancing the economy. So there are people who do want to come in and spend, and the idea is for it to be people who just want to have fun and spend to enjoy, spend to fulfill their different desires. And yeah, so you have all these different types of player archetypes that are coming in now.
So what do you think about looking more broadly at the entire X to earn phenomenon? Do you think across the board that's just a stepping stone? How many of them are there? There was apparently there was even sex to earn.
Well, so right, like what are the purposes of token subsidies in crypto networks, right? I think that is the base question that this all stems from. And right, like, so I had a lot of friends who worked at Uber in the early days. Uber paid the drivers to drive even before there were any riders, right? So it does make sense, right, to have these generous subsidies to kickstart network effects and kickstart at least one side of the demand in a market before there is the other side, right? So in a game, it's like before there's anybody playing for fun, you can pay some people to play so that, right, you have that network effect. You have enough people, like certain games like Axie get more fun the more people that are playing the game, right? Because the game might only be fun if you're getting a match against someone at your skill level, right? And in order for that to happen, you need to kind of kickstart the player liquidity in the queue, right? So right? So for network effect based products, it does make sense, right, to kind of have these generous token subsidies at the beginning to inspire usage. But then, of course, there have to be other types of users that are coming in because of the utility who want to spend, right? Like, so you can kickstart the drivers, the driver side of the market, but of course, there have to be riders that eventually come in. And I think it's a very similar concept. Even Venmo, right? I was one of the first users of Venmo, and PayPal was similar, right? They just paid you in the beginning to onboard people and paid you to use the application. I think crypto is just you're using, right, in many cases, governance tokens that are linked, right, to the future success and actual ownership of the project.
Get ready for Season 3 of the Tron Grand Hackathon 2022. There are a total of $1.2 million in prizes up for grabs in Web3, DeFi, GameFi, NFTs, and the newly added Academy and Ecosystem tracks. So what are you waiting for? Join Tron for an opportunity to showcase your work, win funding for your project, and network with other builders in the community. Tron Grand Hackathon, presented by TronDAO. To learn more, visit trondao.org. Are you eager to make more informed decisions around crypto using data you can trust? Chainalysis is here to help. Chainalysis demystifies cryptocurrency by providing industry-leading compliance, market intelligence, and investigation support for all crypto assets for organizations like Gemini, Crypto.com, and BlockFi. Gain unparalleled visibility and maximize your potential with the leading blockchain data platform by visiting chainalysis.com/thescoop now. This episode is brought to you by IWC. IWC Schaffhausen is known for continually innovating within the world of Swiss watchmaking. A pioneer in the use of titanium and ceramics, IWC today specializes in highly engineered watch cases manufactured from advanced materials such as colored ceramics, ceratanium, and titanium aluminide. This year's collection includes colored ceramic pieces in Lake Tahoe white and woodland green. Discover the new collection at IWC.com or download the IWC app to experience a virtual try-on now. We definitely see the other side of those Uber incentives today. They're at a place where they're like ramping up costs. I mean, I don't know if you've taken an Uber in the city recently, but there's no incentives anymore. It's almost like, it's interesting if you compare the two worlds, where I hear this a lot. I don't know the extent to which it's true in the data, but it's cheaper to take a taxi. It's more convenient to just go to the restaurant and pick up the food yourself when you factor in the cost of Uber Eatsing or Door Dashing. And there's countless other examples of, now that the sort of thumb has been taken off the balance there, you see a retreat. And I guess it's not that different from what we've seen with Axie, where now that the incentives are gone, we have to see, okay, who's left in this market? And now that we have this group, how can we work with them?
Yeah, I also want to say, right, like we still do have incentives, right? Like, because
sure,
so we had a leader. We just announced the leaderboard for season 1 of Axie Origins as being $1.5 million in access. I think this is the largest leaderboard prize pool for an NFT game ever. So there are still incentives, right? It's just that the incentives will the player base needs to be less reliant on the incentives over time and more reliant on the community and the fun and the utility that they get from being a part of the experience.
I left my Uber Eats. I wasn't getting food. I was getting like cleaning supplies and whatnot. And I left the basket open and, went on and did something else. And I got a ping on my phone saying, if you come back to the basket, you can save, X percent. So in a similar fashion, even there's still incentives on their side that they're trying to leverage. And that's what it is, right? It's just pulling these different levers to keep the sort of user base, game player base engaged, but not over indexing on one specific mechanism to do that.
Yeah, and this has always been a thing too with the Axie community, right? Even at the height of the craze, about a half of the community said that their number one motivation for playing was earning, and then it was like 25 and 25% were saying, it was the community or the fact that it was a really fun game. So this has always been a thing, of course, right? Yeah, things definitely got crazy over time, but the cool thing is, right, like we were able to thankfully, raise the Series B and build out this team. We're now 175 people at Sky Mavis. We're able to hire great game designers, great game product people, and actually build a game that's worthy of this amazing community. And Origins is I think, really showing that. We just hit 1 million downloads in early access, which is quite unprecedented for a game that's not even on the app stores. I'm still, talking to Google and Apple and educating them, and hope to be a major catalyst for the entire industry by getting on those stores as well.
What do those conversations look like with Google and Apple?
Well, I have to be quite careful, but what I can say is that I think they're both interested in learning, and they, I think, both understand that this is a paradigm shift that can be really empowering to players and consumers. They just want to be careful about it and make sure that the App Store users are totally safe.
Understandable. Yeah. What do you think resonates with groups like that the most? And we can include, maybe wrap in addition to those two tech giants, just the gaming world in general. What do they see as the paradigm shift? Because when you think about the gamers, they're often very wary. They're very skeptical overall.
Sure. Well, I think, to kind of, I guess, outsiders looking in, one of the things that really resonates about Axie is the community, right? The huge amount of activity on social media like Twitter, where you really get to see these testimonials of people who are in love with the product. I think one of the benefits that Axie has is that our art is also very relatable and approachable. It's nostalgic, right? So it's kind of like Axie is a nostalgic twist on a classic, right? Where the twist is just that you're using these new financial rails and Web3 technology to kind of create a new relationship between the player and the assets in the game. But it's familiar, right? It seems like something like Pokemon or Tamagotchi, which, most people have had experience with as a child.
Yeah. Did you have a Tamagotchi?
So I was into Pokemon. I was into Neopets. I dabbled a little bit with
Neopets.
Yeah, the Neopets. So actually, the founder of Neopets, he gave us really encouraging words of words in 2018. He said, "Hey, like a lot, there were black and gray markets for Neopets. People wanted to, spend real money on these things. The financial rails to do that trustlessly just didn't exist yet."
Did he give you any advice?
I don't think he actually gave us advice. I think he was actually so really bullish. Like he was just like, yeah, it's gonna work. Like just keep going.
That's great.
Like he just said, just keep going. It's gonna work. So that was
That's
like
funny.
I don't know. It was one of the early formative conversations.
That's great. So in terms of, what might impact the community or, send ripples through it, the hack was quite the ordeal. How are we
Yeah.
dealing with the hangover of that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, we had a near-death experience as a startup, as an organization, as a movement, and we were able to thankfully weather it, right? The fact that ETH, tanked right after was great because, right, there was a certain amount of ETH that was the hole that we had to recover. So we were thankfully able to put together a round in under a week to fill that hole. And we actually have good news that we just announced at AxieCon, where $30 million of cryptocurrency has been recovered by law enforcement working with chain analysis. Right. So keep in mind that I think initially it was like 500 million plus, right? But that was in, but the value of ETH has, tanked since then, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I think
So what is this, like a fifth or
yeah,
something
it's
of the
around, I think
total?
like around like 12%, which is,
12%.
yeah. And, I think we'll still probably have a chance to recover more. So yeah, feeling really, hopeful because, this is all right, like kind of gravy because we were expecting to get basically none of it back.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to reiterate that, all user funds were fully backed, through Sky Mavis's balance sheet and the funding round that we put together.
It speaks to a broader problem that exists in crypto where on the one side you have the benefit of transparent, undeniable ownership of an in-game asset which you can leverage and move around in a way that isn't possible in a traditional game. But on the other side, there are these technical risks that don't exist in games.
Mm.
How would you sort of parse through that juxtaposition, especially for a skeptic?
Well, this is new technology, right? And there are going to be bumps in the road, and
That's a big
because
bump, though. That's a lot of money.
yeah, it's definitely it was inexcusable. It's a mistake that we made that should have never happened. On the path to fast track for adoption, we cut some corners that shouldn't have been cut, and we've learned our lesson. And the root cause, right, was just not having enough validators, right? So we've worked to address that. At the time of the hack, there were around 9 validators. We're now at 18, gunning for 21, with Google Cloud being the latest entrant. So it was definitely a hard lesson to learn, and I think we're lucky to have gone through it.
What does that relationship with Google Cloud look like? They seem to be quite keen to be an active participant in the ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think they're in the space to learn, and they see this as a great opportunity for them to learn about this new era of ownership, learn about Web3 gaming, and also to contribute to a cause that they find really appealing. One of the things that I found interesting is they knew how strong our community was.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were looking on, at the time of the incident or the hack, they saw on Twitter that the community still had our back, and that really reassured them. And that was something that they specifically mentioned that I found it interesting. So,
How do you guys get into like esports?
well, Axie is a very competitive game, and it's getting increasingly competitive, right? So we now have, and we have these large prize pools, right? We just did $1 million in esports rewards for AxieCon in Barcelona, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and so these prize pools, they're attracting people. The winner of the Origins Championship, his name is 1437. He is an ex Dota player. He was actually coach of Team Secret, I think a founding member of Team Secret. So he's a really serious name in the world of esports. And we also had Complexity attending AxieCon. We had Method just announced that they'll be running an Axie tournament. So we have some of these traditional esports players that are coming in, that are interested, they're learning, and some of them are more aggressive than others about kind of diving headfirst into the space.
Super interesting. As you know, massive market. Soon you'll be selling at arenas, maybe.
That we see it as a perfect fit for the technology, right? So one of the cool things that we saw was, I think within 24 hours, all players had been paid out because we just did it through a smart contract, and it was an automated payout. Like in traditional esports, there are problems around I don't know, PayPal and money transfers and all of that, and players not actually getting paid for so long. And yeah, that was a concrete and clear benefit.
Yeah, you just get the money. What's your gaming background story like? Have you always been interested in games? What's your favorite game?
Yeah, so me personally, well, I grew up as an only child in New York, and
Yeah.
so I spent a lot of time by myself. And so I was born in 1991. So by the time I was 3 or 4, it was like Super Nintendo era. So Donkey Kong Country was my favorite. I'm a very visual person, so the colors were beautiful. The soundtrack on that game was amazing. So I spent my kindergarten era playing that. I think the next game that I was really into after the Donkey Kong series was StarCraft and Zelda. I think I played kind of simultaneously. So my
Sure.
cousins are Korean, and all Koreans are obliged to be into StarCraft. So, and I was an only child, right? So hanging out with my cousins was like one of the highlights of my life. So they onboarded me to StarCraft. That's actually how I learned how to use the internet. That's how I learned how to type. So I would play with them halfway across the world when they were in Korea. So I think, yeah, from an early age, I understood that technology could be this spark of adoption for new technologies. I was really into Diablo. I was into crafting, so I would use the Harajer cube quite a lot, and I think that's maybe inspired some of the stuff around the Axie economy as well. I was a initial beta tester for World of Warcraft. I was in one of the top U.S. rating guilds when I was 12 or 13 years old. It was called Overrated. We ended up getting banned actually by Blizzard.
Oh yeah, why?
We did a lot of things that were against the terms of service. So we used to actually sell slots in our raids to Chinese mining gold farming operations because
Yeah.
they needed the best gear, and the best gear could only be found in the raids, and they couldn't do the raids. And you needed a 40-man guild to do it. So we would sell slots in our raids. That was interesting because we never actually really knew as normal guild mates how much money the guild was making and stuff like that. So it's like there's no transparency. And then the reason that we actually got banned, though, I believe, is that we were dropping through the floor in Encourage. I'm not sure how familiar you are with World of Warcraft, but we were dropping through the floor to the final boss to basically skip all the content
Sure.
leading up to him, and we got snagged. And I think at that time I was away for summer camp, but because I was in the guild, my account was also banned. So, not to say that was a spark where I was like, we need to take back power for the players, but maybe I think those early experiences around digital economies prepared me to really understand NFTs when I learned about them in December 2017.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say you're a bona fide, legit gamer.
So a lot of the founders, right? We haven't really worked too much in gaming before, but I think we're all like pretty hardcore gamers. Alexander, our COO, he was a Dota player. I think top 200 in Europe at certain points. Tron is like he's always gaming. So yeah,
You don't have as much time to anymore.
yeah, unfortunately. So actually, when we were starting Axie, when I had just found Axie as a community member, I was playing League of Legends at Waypoint Cafe in New York, and I think like the Lower East Side. So I was playing a lot of League back then, but unfortunately these days don't have much time to play. I do play Origins though. And I have a high bar, so that's how I know that it's getting fun. I wasn't playing actually in April and in May; it wasn't good enough. But within the last month or so, it's gotten good enough for me to play and have a lot, have a lot of fun with. Also, I like the fact that I can now buy the runes and charms that I need, so I don't feel like I'm falling behind. Right, I can just kind of
Yeah,
get what I need to be able to progress and play against people that I feel are at my skill level.
that's really funny. So you're kind of like this gaming pirate, navigating the world at a young age, seeing many things. It's so interesting. So when you think about how to further improve the sort of suite of games that you've developed, what should we expect aside from some of the things we talked about?
Well, I think there are still a lot of advancements to be made around accessibility,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you don't want the Web3 blockchain aspect of it to be like super front and center, right? Like you want it to be
Mm-hmm.
kind of powering the benefits, right? So I think we still have a long way to go related to that. Of course, right? Like getting on app stores, I think will be really key. Right, mobile is the largest gaming market right now. That's where gamers are spending a majority of their time and a majority of their
Sure.
money. So forming those alliances and getting on those stores, I think will be really important. I think also, right, like, right now when people think of Axie, they think of a card battler.
Sure.
Right, like, battle Q-pets, play cards against each other. Maybe a little bit simplistic, but our vision for Axie is to create an infinite world of experiences where if you have a team of Axies, you can play a card battler, you can play a land game, you can have access to all these different mini games. You can have, there might be even AR games that you could experience, right? So we actually have a builders program right now where there are community members that are building games on top of Axie. Some of them are starting to get a lot of traction, actually. So, right, this idea that, like if you have these NFTs, you get access to an infinite content library. I think that's going to be a really powerful concept that people are kind of discounting right now.
You got a lot of people to execute that. 170. What were you 6 months ago?
I think we're right around 100, maybe 6 months ago. So yeah,
like the
we're
same growth trajectory.
Yeah, so that's that's our motto during this bear market is like, don't speed up, don't slow down, just keep steadily compounding. Everyone else is going to like clam up and get tight, and they might not be in a blessed position to continue to, push forward, but we are, so we plan on capitalizing on it.
Yeah. Biddle mode, I guess you could say.
That's the type of environment that we prefer. And I think a lot of our community members, especially the ones that were with us back in 2018, 2019, right? These quieter periods are where where you set yourself up for the next stage of adoption.
Yeah. So would you say it's fair, or would it be an exaggeration to say that the age of play to earn is over? Or are we just iterating off of that?
It's complex, right? I think, like, what we're doing is we're now calling it play and own. And right, there has to be, right, if you call it play to earn, you're kind of advertising for, and attracting people that are, coming in with that framing. And I think it can be maybe like not great for setting and aligning expectations. The idea is, though, if you can attract a bunch of different types of archetypes of users, people that are spending for emotional reasons, for fun, for status, for to maybe save themselves time in a game that they love, then, right, there will be certain members of the community that can earn. And we're still yet to see. It's still like unclear on what percentage of the community that can actually be. But one thing that I'll say is that we know that in mobile free to play, right, it's like 1% of the whales are subsidizing everyone else playing for free. So it may be that, I don't want to put out any predictions around percentages, but it may be that a relatively small percentage of the user base that are whales, spending a lot, might be able to subsidize, right, these negative LTVs for everyone else in the network.
And how do you adjust the like groups you target in this new world? Like, how do you get the types of demos you need to strike that balance?
Yeah, that is a challenge, actually, right? Because so far, like, community building and organic engagement has been the main way to grow, I think, in Web3. And in that, it's sometimes it's a little bit harder to really choose your users. But we are building the world's first kind of sophisticated Web3 user acquisition engine, right, where we can do performance marketing and some more targeted attraction of users of different profiles.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, sir, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us. I loved your origin story, no pun intended.
Thanks for having me. And it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it certainly is. Thank you so much for stopping by the Scoop to chat with us. Once again, we've been joined today by our guest, Jeff Zirlin, founder and growth lead at Sky Mavis Games. Where can our listeners learn more about some of the stuff you're working on?
Well, yeah, I would, follow me on Twitter at JIHOZ_Axie. You can follow the Axie Infinity Twitter. That's just Axie Infinity on Twitter. And then also, keep an eye on what we're doing with the Ronin Network. That's just Ronin_network on Twitter as well.
Thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
The Scoop will be back for you again with another great guest. Have an awesome day. Looking for more great insights from The Block? Check out The Block Research, the premier platform for research content on crypto markets and the digital asset industry. The Block Research membership includes cutting-edge reports, webinars, company maps, and more, available via our dedicated research portal. Visit theblockresearch.com to find out how to join today, or contact a member of our sales team at sales@theblockcrypto.com and let them know that Frank sent you.